Japan, 1988. The late years of Showa, when Japan's bubble economy was at its peak, Nagoya's new apartments rose beside rice fields and narrow roads. The world felt safe enough that a front door might be left unlocked for a moment. On the 18th of March, 1988, that illusion tore open in a way no one in Nagoya would ever forget. A 27-year-old pregnant woman was found murdered inside her second-floor apartment. Beside her, no, beneath her, their first child had just been born, alive, crying softly. The questions were only beginning. In a small 4-unit, 2-story apartment block completed in 1985, 2 families lived on the first floor. The second floor had 2 units. One sat empty, the other was home to a young couple in their 3rd year of marriage, waiting on a baby already days past due. Her due date had been the 13th of March. 5 days later, on the morning of Friday, the 18th of March, she saw her husband off to work, as usual. Her husband, aware that her due date had already passed, had been calling home several times a day from his office to check on her. Around noon, she answered the phone, and everything seemed fine, but later in the afternoon, when he tried again, there was no response. He assumed she'd be home when he arrived. He reached the building at about 7:40 p.m. The door was unlocked, the lights were off. Something felt wrong. He stepped into the bedroom to change out of his suit. Habit, denial, shock, who can say? Then he heard it, a newborn's thin, tentative cry coming from the living room. He flicked the light. His wife lay on her back in the small tatami room, not moving. And on the blood-slick floor at her feet, their son, the umbilical cord still attached, crying. Instinctively, he reached for the house phone, but it wasn't there. The receiver was missing, and the phone cable had been pulled out. Someone had deliberately disabled it. In a panic, he ran downstairs to a neighbor's phone and called police. Medics arrived prepared to clamp and cut the cord. What they found inside that room would scar them. The wife had been strangled, likely with an electric cord. Her arms bound behind her, then her abdomen cut open from the pit of the stomach downward, a vertical gash roughly 12 inches. The baby had been removed from the uterus. And then came a detail that investigators later described as almost unspeakable. A telephone handset and a Mickey Mouse key holder had been stuffed into the open abdomen. The phone cord in the kitchen had been sliced cleanly with a blade. The weapon was never found. The boy was born into blood and chaos. He had stab wounds on his knee and buttock, and another cut across his lower abdomen. But he had a fighter's will. Doctors stabilized him, and within 15 days he was discharged from the hospital. A miracle, the papers called it. Police narrowed it to between 3 and 4 p.m. Daylight, there were no signs of forced entry. Was she lured to the door by someone asking directions? Did she know the killer? Or simply not fear him? The neighborhood was a new residential area, quiet by day, sparse foot traffic at night, and the adjacent upstairs unit was empty. The killer had time to bind, strangle, cut, extract, and stage this macabre scene, then walk away. As in any homicide case, investigators first looked at the family and at the person who made the initial report. The husband had discovered the scene and called for help. Neighbors also told police they had occasionally overheard arguments between the couple. At first, suspicion fell on him, but his alibi was solid. Colleagues verified he had stayed in the office the entire day, right through to the end of work. Within a day, suspicion moved away from him. The husband did mention one unsettling detail. He told investigators he had heard noises coming from the apartment next door, a unit that was supposed to be vacant. Before her death, his wife had mentioned hearing the same thing. Detectives searched the empty apartment, but they found nothing conclusive. Still, the possibility lingered. Had someone been hiding there, watching, waiting, and then slipping away unseen? Soon, other potential leads emerged. A round-faced, stocky man, about 30 years old, with close-cropped hair, was reportedly seen in the neighborhood that afternoon, asking for directions and heading toward one of the downstairs apartments. Another account spoke of an unfamiliar car. Still another, a neighbor recalled, a scream. Detectives chased each thread, but none led to a suspect they could arrest. The official stance hardened. A break-in with robbery motives, carried out by a sexual deviant pervert that escalated into robbery murder. But the apartment hadn't been ransacked like a typical burglary. The signature was cruelty, not theft. The phone handset, shoved into the victim's abdomen, defied logic. So did the keychain, a Mickey Mouse charm her husband used for his car keys. It had been removed from its place in the apartment and wedged inside the wound. Was this someone trying to humiliate, to shock, to leave a message? Or was it simply a deranged mind improvising horror after horror? Publicly, police stressed the deviant intruder theory. Privately, detectives were divided. The case dominated headlines. Every major national paper and the regional press across Nagoya carried the story in a steady drumbeat. Each report added another chilling detail: the strangulation, the phone cord torn out, the missing weapon, the infant, injured but alive, the husband's desperate plea for help, the sketch of a stocky, round-faced man seen nearby. Reporters called it one of the most grotesque crimes Nagoya had ever seen. Some described it with the phrase "rare in history," a grotesque outrage almost beyond comprehension. Police poured manpower into the investigation, nearly 40,000 officer working days in all. And yet, despite the effort, not a single arrest was ever made. Years later, the boy and his father left Japan and settled in Hawaii. The grandparents explained that the family's grave and altar had been moved there too. Their only prayer, they said, was that the child could grow up free from the shadow of that night. In those years, Japan still had a 15-year statute of limitations on murder prosecutions. The case reached the 18th of March, 2003, 15 years to the day, unsolved. No indictment. No trial. Time, the law said, had run out. The family called the system cruel. Detectives called the scene unforgettable. Unsolved changed from an interval to a verdict. Years later, Japan would abolish the murder statute of limitations, but too late for this case. More than 30 years later, the answers remain out of reach.